OnePlus's first ever foldable is here, and in some ways it is my favorite fold device, but in other ways, well, let's talk about it. So I've actually been using this phone for the past almost a week now as my personal daily phone, and you know, there's some things that I like, some things that I don't like, some bugs that I've experienced. So let's just go through all of the things that I liked and all of the things that I didn't. And by the way, if this is your first time here and you've never seen one of my practical reviews before, essentially what that means is this is not going to be like a full-fledged, in-depth, comprehensive review. This is more so just, you know, my personal experience using the device on a day-to-day basis and just kind of my opinions of what I thought. And we're not gonna cover every single thing about the phone, but there are certain things that stood out to me, kind of more practical things that I just experience on the day-to-day. So let's start out with the good things. Okay, so the first thing I wanna talk about, and this is one of my favorite things about the device, is the design. And I think this is kind of something that a lot of foldables need to like strive to be, is because this phone is both fairly thin for being a foldable, but also the outside display is a pretty normal aspect ratio. Because, you know, if we compare it to like the Samsung Z Fold, like the front display there is kind of thin, kind of skinny, kind of awkward. It's like Samsung thought first of making a good inside display and then made the outside display work. You know, that's kind of what it feels like. But this phone, it's like they wanted to make sure the outside display felt good, felt normal, felt like something you're used to. And then when you unfold the phone, you get that bigger experience. And I think this is the right way to go about it, because at least for me, and honestly, probably for lots of other people, I'm using the outside display like 90% of the time. So I want that outside screen to be a good experience. If I have to, you know, make a bunch of sacrifices by having an insanely thick phone and also having a really awkward outside display just so I can get that bigger screen that I'm only gonna use 10% of the time, then honestly, it's not worth it. But if you can get to the point where there's literally no compromises, where it's the same thickness as a normal phone, it's the same aspect ratio, size as a normal phone, and then when you want to, you can open it up for a bigger display, I think that is the goal, and that's what we should be going towards. And this phone gets a lot of the way there. Not all the way, but it's getting there. I mean, when we take a look at it unfolded, it's an insanely thin phone. Like it's very thin, thinner than probably any normal phone you've ever seen. But when it's folded, it obviously gets thicker, and it is, you know, thicker than a normal phone, but it's not anything that's like not manageable. Like, for instance, if I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max here with a case on, it's almost the same exact thickness as that. Now, if you throw a case on this phone, obviously it'll make it a little bulkier, but you know, that's not too bad. And also just like the shape of the phone, I think the way they made it, it just feels, I don't know. I just like it. It feels nice. It's like just a nice little nice, I don't even know what to call it. It's nice. Oh, and also going along with the design and like the display is the crease. This is the least amount of crease I maybe have ever seen in a foldable before. Like, you can definitely see that there is a crease, but it's a little bit different than normal. Usually there's like a little like divot in the phone. There's like this little canyon in the middle, but this phone, it's kind of just like a, I don't know, it's kind of like a little wobbly spot in the center of the phone. It's kind of interesting, but it's like, you know, pretty smooth and, you know, definitely like way less existent than a normal folding phone crease. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the software implementation, and there's a couple things here that I like. One is the dock. So we've seen docks before on other folding phones, like with Samsung. I believe Google has it too. But essentially, when you have the phone unfolded on the bigger display, you get a little like taskbar, kind of similar like you have on, you know, a Windows computer. But it's nice and convenient because, you know, you can open apps even if you're inside of another app. But the cool thing that they did here with the dock, just beyond having access to apps, is this recents folder. And this is so smart, and like, it's just such a good implementation here. So essentially what this is it just allows you to open this folder when you're in, whatever app you happen to be in, and it shows recent images, recent documents, just recent things on your phone. And then you can hold and drag those images or documents onto whatever app you're using. So for example, like if you're typing out an email and you want to send a recent image that you took in the email, then you can just open that recents folder and drag it right in. It's simple, convenient, and it's great. Now, one unfortunate thing that comes with this is actually that it doesn't work, at least currently, in Google Drive. Like the first thing I thought I would use it for when I heard about this new feature, I was like, oh, that would be great for Google Drive, because I use Drive like fairly often, and I would like, that would be so cool just to be able to drag things in, but it doesn't work. I don't know why. Now, I think it is important for me to say that they are supposed to have another software update for this phone. It was actually supposed to come out like a week ago or so, but then they delayed it to be like 2 or 3 days ago. But for some reason, I still don't have the new software update, so maybe that'll be something that comes in that update. I don't really know. But anyways, another thing with the software is actually the fact that they let you download custom icons natively. And I still don't know why this is not a thing on every single Android phone, just like Android in general. But like this phone lets you just enable custom icons. Same with the Nothing Phone 2. You can just add custom icons, and it's great. Because one thing with these fold devices is you can't really enable a custom launcher, at least in my experience. I usually use Nova Launcher with my phones to get like a whole custom home screen setup, but whenever I've used these fold devices, it doesn't really work for a couple of reasons. One is that it disables that dock that I just talked about, and also like the way the home screen works with it being a big home screen, but then also your front display is a small home screen. Sometimes it acts a little bit strangely with Nova Launcher. Anyways, all that to say, one of the main reasons I typically use a launcher is so I can get custom icons, but this phone lets me get custom icons, so it makes me feel a little bit better about not being able to use a launcher. Okay, another thing is that OnePlus actually took it upon themselves to not only make a folding phone, but to also make it a flagship phone. Because if you look at other folding devices, sometimes it can feel like they focused more so on making a folding phone and less on making it an actual high-end flagship device. But OnePlus was like, you know what? We're gonna do both. And I'm not gonna get like super in-depth on the specs, but this phone does have, a top-tier processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. It has 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. It has a peak brightness on both displays of 2,800 nits, which I'm pretty sure is the most on any smartphone ever. I could be wrong, but that's the biggest number I've heard. It also supposedly has a flagship camera system. I've used it a little bit, but not enough to give like a real legitimate opinion. But I mean, it does have a 48 megapixel main camera, a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and a 64 megapixel 3x telephoto lens. And so it's just nice to see that not only did they make a good folding phone, but they also just made a great phone. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about here, and this is kind of an interesting one because I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I've kind of had mixed opinions, is the battery life. And it's kind of strange because one day I had really good battery life, like good battery life, but then other days I haven't had good battery life. So I'm kind of confused as to why that is. Like the other day, I got like 6.5 hours of screen on time and ended the day with 36% remaining. Like that's on track to hit 10 hours of screen on time. Like I don't know if I actually would have got 10 hours, but like that's some pretty good battery life. But then like today, and I mean like even right now, I'm at 59% battery and I've only had an hour and a half of screen on time. Like that's not good. So I don't really know why. That's kind of weird. It's not like today I have not had a ton of insane usage on my phone. So I'm like, I have no idea. So the battery life might be good. Yeah. Okay, now it's time for the bad stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, my list of things I didn't like is longer than the list of things I did like, but a lot of these are just bugs or like nitpicks, so they might not hold a lot of weight. But anyways, let's go through them. Okay, so my first complaint, and I think this is something I've experienced on every Fold device that I've used, but when you open the phone to access the bigger screen, you may expect to see more information on the screen. So for example, on TikTok, when I have the phone closed, I can see a grid of like 12 videos, but when I open the phone, I would expect to be able to see more videos at a time. But no, it just makes the thumbnails of the videos bigger, and then I can only see 6 videos. I'm seeing half as much information on a screen that's twice as big. Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. Okay, the next problem that I had with this device is actually that Google Pay doesn't work. Like, it literally says that this phone doesn't meet security standards for contactless payments. And it's kind of weird because in like the quick access panel, it actually has like Google Wallet as an option in there. So like it's built into the phone's operating system, yet it doesn't let me add my credit card to Google Pay. And again, I'm still waiting for that software update, so maybe that is another thing that will be fixed there. I don't know. So, I mean, just keep that in mind. Okay, the next thing, and this is actually something that has been pretty annoying, but the keyboard seems to kind of lag behind sometimes when I type. And so, you get like that haptic feedback when you're typing, like the phone vibrates. I'm not sure if it's that the vibration feedback is what's lagging behind, or if it's actually that the typing can't keep up. And I will say I am using SwiftKey, so I'm using an external keyboard app, not the one that came with the phone, which I know some people might say, like, why would you test a phone with not the default keyboard app? That's not a real way to judge the phone's performance, but I feel like millions of people use external keyboard apps, and so I think it's an important thing to just use the phone how I actually use it, and that is how I actually use it. And whether it's the phone's fault for not being optimized for the keyboard somehow, or if it's, SwiftKeys, the app's fault for not being optimized for this phone, honestly, it doesn't really matter whose fault it is if the experience is bad. If the experience is bad, the experience is bad. So like, someone needs to fix it. And again, still don't have that new software update, so maybe that could be fixed, who knows. Okay, kind of a strange thing is I'm actually finding myself putting the phone to maximum brightness while inside, which is weird because I said that this phone has an insanely bright, screen at up to 2800 nits. But I mean, I guess 2800 nits is the peak brightness, which would only activate when you're outside, but like still, why am I having to max out the brightness when I'm inside when the screen is capable of so much? And another thing, and this actually has to do with the hinge, which by the way, the hinge is great. Like, it feels solid. The phone flicks open. It's kind of like satisfying. The phone even folds flat, which is great. But that thing where the phone flicks open actually can make it difficult at times to watch content with the phone propped up, because at a certain angle, the phone just wants to flick open instead of, staying propped up where you want it. And this may not be like a huge deal. I mean, you can find an angle where the phone will hold itself that is, a pretty good viewing spot, but I just wish it, wouldn't flick open so early. And I also tried to do it by playing content from the outside display and folding the phone upward, which actually does work. The phone like holds itself there really well, but as soon as you start to unfold the phone, it switches from playing your content on the outside screen to the inside screen. So you actually can't do that. Okay, I have like 4 more like nitpicks or like bugs about the software that I just want to go through really quick. One is that when you go to your recents, actually, sometimes it doesn't work. Like, I don't know if I'm not like swiping up hard enough or something like that, but sometimes I'll go, swipe up and hold to go to recents and it like won't go. And I have to like try like 2 or 3 times to get it to go to the recent, so that's weird. But another thing with the recents is that they filter to the top right, which makes it a little bit harder to reach when you get, to your last app. It's all the way in the top right corner. So that's just a small preference nitpick thing. Another thing is that for some reason, the phone dims your wallpaper. Like you could put like a super bright white wallpaper on your phone and it'll be like a light gray instead of white. They just like dim it down, and I don't know why. I have not found a way around it. Kind of strange, kind of weird. And then the last like nitpick thing here is that, you know how you have like Google Now on the left side of your homepage and it'll show you like news and stuff? Well, you can't remove that for some reason. Like on other phones, you have the option to, just turn that off and not have it on your phone. But this phone doesn't let you do that. Okay, there's one more software thing that I kind of had an issue with, and it's the way that the home screen works on the inside display. Like on one hand, I think it's a good way to make it work, but on the other hand, I'm like, I wish I had the option to change it. So essentially how it works, it's actually the same way they do it on the Pixel Fold, but the outside display, you have your regular one-page home screen. And then when you open the inside display, it just shows 2 pages. And so instead of swiping to, your second page on the home screen, it just shows both of them on the big inner display. But the problem that I have is that I only use one home screen page. And because I only use one, when I open the phone up, I have all of my apps and everything on the left side of the screen. And then the right side of the screen just has nothing, which, especially if I'm holding the big open phone with one hand, it makes it very difficult to reach my apps, which, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I wish I had the option to just have like a fully separate inside home screen. Just make it separate, or at least just give me the option to make it separate. All right, 2 more things that I did not like. One is the wireless charging, because it's not here. This phone, like, how I said earlier, they were trying to make this like a foldable flagship. Well, that's one thing that they did not do that should be flagship. When they first said that they didn't have wireless charging on this, I was like, oh dang, that's a bummer, but I don't think I'll really care that much. But then I realized that I wirelessly charge my phone next to my bed every single night. But now I cannot do that with this phone. Okay, and the last thing is actually the Wi-Fi range on this phone. And I don't know, this might be a weird thing to talk about, but I have my router inside of my office. I'm inside my office right now. My router is literally like a few feet away from me, but in my bedroom, like a few rooms down, usually my phones can, get Wi-Fi signal from my router from that distance. But this phone drops the Wi-Fi in that room, more often than any other phone I've probably ever used. So, I mean, that's also a bummer. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I forgot. I had one more thing. One thing that I didn't like is, how you have the giant camera bump on the back of the phone? While it may be cool, it kind of gets in the way of holding the phone, because typically I would, hold the phone with my pointer finger where that camera bump is, but then my finger's just on top of the camera bump and then getting fingerprints on the camera lenses. And so either you just, get fingerprints on the camera lenses, or you got to hold your pointer finger a little bit lower, and it's a little bit lower than is most comfortable. So, I mean, still, maybe that's also a nitpick, but yeah, anyways. But overall, I feel like this is probably the best designed fold device that I've personally ever been able to use. I mean, from the aspect ratio of the front screen, from the thinness and the design and the build of the actual phone, to also just, it's an actual like flagship spec device. Like, this thing is great. And while it may have, some problems, some bugs, I have some nitpicks with it, like, overall, it's very good. And it's cheaper than other foldables too, so yeah. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video and for watching my long form content recently. It's been really cool to see you guys engage. It's kind of crazy to, have gone from me uploading Minecraft videos 10 years ago and getting like 10 views on a video to now being able to upload these videos for thousands of people. It's amazing, and I appreciate you guys so much. So thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.